when you look into Article 102, it's Section 2G5 of the treaty, we have to encourage and support the mobility of students and teachers within the community, and to ensure, I think for the last 2 days, we have made clear the issue of mobility of lecturers and also of students who are moving from South Sudan to Kenya, to Tanzania, to Uganda. I think Burundi, we have some of them. Soon, they'll be going to Congo. Yes. We are coming here to present to you how can we harmonize fee structure. Harmonize fee structure. And the possibility of identifying what is the cost effective. I think when I say harmonize the structure, maybe some of you are thinking, are we going to pay the same school fees as Ugandan universities? Or Kenya? Or Tanzania? Ladies and gentlemen, the fees structure model does not seek to. That's what this fee structure is not here. Number one, to determine what fees each university must charge. But not come here to tell you that the University of Juba should charge this. That is not what you can for. I'm not coming here to tell you charge this amount for students. No. Number two, to determine a uniform fees for the whole of East Africa. We're not coming here also to tell you that we have to harmonize fee structure within the partner state. If one student pays 1,000 in Juba, University of Juba, Makerere the same 1,000, Dar es Salaam, no, that's not what you are coming to. To determine who should meet the cost of education, this is not our business in the fee structure. And lastly, we are not here, or the fee structure set a minimum or maximum fees for universities. That one also, we are not going to answer it. The fee structure model is not here to tell you, this is the minimum, this is the maximum. That is not what you have to do. But the fee structure is going to answer the following. Help universities, each one individually, calculate their unit cost of education. That's the answer of fee structure. To calculate the unit cost of education in your university. Number two, enable universities to gauge their fees against similar institutions in the region. When you have entered data into the model, you can see what about other universities within South Sudan. Then even you can push further to check what about universities in Uganda, in Tanzania. What can we do? And also the fee structure model is going to allow you to contribute towards ending the practices of charging ES-citizen international fees. ESC partner states, sometimes when you send a student to study in Tanzania or in Uganda, Kenya, Burundi, in Rwanda, then that student is charged in USD, US dollar. When we know that we are in the same partner state, we feel bad. So the model is going to help us to answer that question. And every university is to allow the recommendation of council ministers that have already been implemented on the issue of the school fees. I believe that my Deputy Executive Secretary, emphasized since yesterday that if there's one student who has a problem of being charged in USD within partner state, consult us. The same day the student is going to get help, because we can't run away for the decision from ministries. This is what we find on the meeting which took place, on that meeting of Council of Ministers, held on 21st to 24th November 2004 in Arusha, Tanzania. On its page, just I mentioned in the page 125B, it says the council adopted I say a governing body recommendation that any East African student attending a university in another partner state other than his or her own be charged the same fees as locals. If in Uganda paying shillings, Ugandan shillings, somebody living in this place going to Uganda should pay in what? Ugandan shillings, not in dollars. And so I share, after getting recommendations from the ministries, it embarked on how we can develop a model which can help universities to manage the cost unit of their education. Also, one of the notable milestones is from the declaration of the summit heads of the states, which declared East African community as a common higher education area. You see, we are much grounded and much support. I'm sorry to say what maybe I'm going to say. We have heard most of universities, when you are talking, I share, they confuse us with the forum. We are government entity, funded by you. That's why we are calling you to be part of ICEA. Yesterday we said from the University of Juba that before we landed in Kampala, we believe to find already application on our desk, which is possible. It's on the email. Before we leave here, you can find it already in Kampala for Deputy Executive Secretary and the Executive Secretary to sign it. Then the next council meeting, executive meeting, can immediately all universities of Juba become member of ICEA and the benefit of what you gave us for operation. Ladies and gentlemen, I think yesterday and the day before, we went through issue of students to join different universities. We mentioned advantages which are at ICEA. Students getting scholarships. Also, we find several tools which we have developed, from quality assurances, frameworks, and so on and so forth. I think that I will not dwell much on it because it was mentioned yesterday. ICEA developed a fee structure model using, I want to note this, it's not coming from anywhere else. It's not taken from European countries as we know, have been copying every day. No. Here, a team of technical experts from selected universities in the ES partner state sat, did research in different universities, and they came up with a model which is feasible, which is acceptable. The instruments were used to collect the data and the finalization of the model ready for region and the country validation processes. The regional validation was held in Kampala, Uganda, 2019. 2017, which means that this model we are presenting here is already validated for dissemination in the ESC partner state. And you can see it that on the 14th, so the 14th Sector Council on Education, Science, Technology, Culture, and Sport held on 25th May 2018 directed Isaiah to make country dissemination in the collaboration with the miracles. We are here to disseminate that model which is already accepted. The Permanent Secretary, most welcome. So, we are going to go to the fee structure model development process. How was it developed? We started by saying the need of higher education. Higher education is world over considered to be a key factor and enable for individual and societal development aspirations. You and me know very well that if we are not educated, even if we might have the natural resources, I don't know how many meters or cubers we can count them, but without education, all those things are irrelevant. So education should be strengthened. A cost management system that provides quality and time. An analysis of education cost is a higher value. We are talking a word now, we're introducing a word here, cost. Cost. We should understand why you are calculating fees. What is the cost? You see, when I'm taking this water in my heart, it represents a cost. But what is that cost? It means that whatever material used is in this cost of this water. Isn't it? That's what you want to understand as well as in education. If I charge a student 20,000, does 20,000 present every activities in the university or not? That's why we want to determine what's the cost unit for a program. And there we are going to find out what is the minimum, what is the maximum, what is the middle. Maybe I come back when I say what's the minimum, we have to refer for you what we call break-even point. Sometimes for private institutions, they have to understand what is our return on investment, or what's our payback period. I think the model will be able to answer those questions. The objective of this is that the regional fee structure is to establish a common framework for determining the cost of delivery of programs as related to the quality of functions and students' contribution in terms of fees in universities in the ESC partner state. I want to remind you that as I started, I said, we are not here to tell you to charge this. No. Or to have the same amount as the school fees. That's not came from. These are specific objectives. As I mentioned some of them already. Determine the cost components to be able to apportion the cost vis-a-vis the administration institutions, to determine how cost components impact the program delivery, to attribute proportion of cost to students' fees leading to a unity cost. Then the model, the fee structure model, as I said, was delivered using a EAC regional team involving selected universities, where 3 experts were selected to lead the model, and also participating members were tasked to coordinate. You have seen that this model was presented and divided. This is the methodology which was used in order to develop the model. Activity-based costing. What are those activities? Number 2, universities program, unity cost. We have some programs we took reference to, like, for example, we took humanities, science, technology, and engineering, management. Then we took also medicine. I think those are the major programs we do have. Other disciplines can fall into those 3. Then you have university core function. The methodology also, the template was designed and availed to the participant universities. Means the expert went to university to that university. You see, it was approved in 2017, and Sudan was admitted in ASC in 2016, and this has started in almost 2013, because it was done for more than 5 years to be able to come to this model. So I can be sure that it is really working, it can be helpful. Data analysis, which was also processed to develop factors for apportionment of cost, and also you have staff-students ratio, which is the key important in determination of fees. You know, from writing UNESCO, we have been determining what is a staff ratio. Some recommends 1/5, 1/10, 20, 100, depends. And sometimes we found out that universities themselves also, they can define their ratios according to the situation they are living in. Sometimes, universities they do. Universities, they can determine, say that we, in our class, 1 lecturer should teach 80 students. It becomes a university rule. But if that is the case, how are we going to calculate the cost unit? These are findings, cost components, determine the apportionment factors. Example, teaching and learning, administration, and others. Number 2, allocation of the factors. They are allocated in the percentages, 5, 10, 20. The most important is that at the end, we make 100%. When you're going to present a model in Excel, you see those apportionment, how it is designed. Number 2, clustering of programs. We have 3 mentioned: STEM, medicine, and humanities. Impact we should have on program delivery. Establish recommended norms for allocation of funds to the core mandate and administration of the university. And lastly, fee absorption, proportional to cost component. Establish dependence on the level of subsidiary. Here you have to note, universities which are subsidized, sometimes this model can work only on what they are charging, because those universities are most covered by the government. But they have other expenses. No, let me use it, not expenses. Let me use expenditure, which they should be capturing. This is an impact on the program delivery. For example, if we take ICT costs, we have a teaching and learning, which are 70%, administration, 30%, service, which includes maybe consultancy if they are there, community, engagement, and so on and so forth, 5%, public research and innovation also 15%. If you sum up that.
Is there a way to enlarge this a little bit? I can't really see. ICT or whatever is really good. Now I wonder whether two things. Did you get any idea about the average fee structure based on that model from some countries, which works out as expenditure per? Because it's how is it related to expenditure per student? For example, I would look at it like, in the end of the day, is how much, if you want to have a break even, I'm not making profit, I'm not making losses, especially for private. So it will work out as expenditure per student. Okay. We put into consideration the living standard of the country because the cost of living in the country, for example, which is an external factor in this. In Ethiopia may be cheaper, Uganda may be cheaper. So you have $1 in Uganda may give you more than $1 in Kenya and $1 in Tanzania and so forth. In terms of that purchasing power parity. Now, how does it, if you have come up with something, say for Uganda or Tanzania, okay, how does it compare with the recommended, World Bank expenditure for students? Because it really shows that if you are, spending less, then it means you are really far below. Because I can teach students, they don't have access to ICT, maybe they don't have laboratories, so I'm actually spending less on that. They don't have seminars where I have to pay people and so on. So you can do it cheaply, which is going to push down expenditure. So do we have a gold standard, like minimum standard recommended? Has the committee look at that, which tell you that, because in the 80s, I think, when the World Bank came with the idea that the return to high general education is higher than the return, I remember that actually the expenditure per head of student in tertiary education fell dramatically. So where is it now? If you are looking at the cost based on the literature that the group has done. So I really need consideration to the to the cost of living in the country, and then any examples of these countries based on this model. Thirdly, how does that compare with what the World Bank would call the the minimum expenditure per student head in tertiary education? Thank you very much.
Flexibility. How far it is flexible when we are posting. Because, like for example, look one here, dollar can change. The morning, the evening, the price changes. So this model, is it considering this fluctuation of the price? That is my question. Another question maybe is from my Korea. What is the number of the private universities versus public universities? Is it mostly based on the sample taken on the private university or the public university? Because more or less, I think it differs.
For mobility of students and the partners countries. And then does it depend on the request of that particular university, or it will be the responsibility of that body to move the staff, academic staff to various universities in the 7 states?
Programs apportioning the percentages to the various programs in the university. What criteria did you use? Did you consider also, I think more or less like what they said before? For example, for science-based courses, you give learning a certain percentage, administration a certain percentage. What are the criteria you use to calculate these percentages? And also, did you consider specifically, does it have a window or a specific situation of a country? When you say 75%, 10%, or is it just across the board? Is there a chance for mutation of these percentages?
Actually, when we come to staff mobility, university is engaged. Where he is going and where he is living, he or she. Because a form should be filled and authorities of the university should endorse it, that the person is free to go to teach. And the other side, which we call host university, also should be able to sign that we will receive the lecturer who is coming. So there is no way a person can go to teach somewhere else where administration is not aware, because we check if the authorities have accepted. The question of costs of living asked by Vice Chancellor of University of Juba. That's why we said that we are not to give you or to tell you that this is what you should charge. You have to look into the situation where your university is located. Because the cost of living in Juba is totally different. Afar, 200 kilometers from Juba. So you can't charge sometimes the same. So it depends on the location, and it depends on many considerations which we all know, which can influence the cost. So the fee structure model is not here to dictate this is the minimum, this is the maximum, this is the middle. It is only here to tell you this is how you can use this fee structure to calculate the cost unit. So then you can make a decision. Say, okay, seeing the situation we are in, I think if we do this, it will be better. And you have to understand, for sometimes private universities, it's a function of enrollment of students, because most of the money you get are from students who are paying school fees, isn't it? So everything will be calculated based on the number of students you are targeting. Because as you target many students, isn't it? Maybe the school fees per course will be lower because you have less. But when you have many students, as many, the school fees put together, they can be able to sustain your institution. So to clarify this, we are not dictating. Everybody should be able to understand the way where he is living. I think somebody asked how flexible the model is. Does it take care of inflation? Today we are living, how do you call it, the day of inflation. I think our dollars, and the dollar is no longer stable at the market. I think worldwide, not only here in South Sudan, everywhere today. And According to economics, it's not that every time there's inflation, it changes everything. It's a cost of time because it fluctuates up, down, up and down. And so the model, it depends what currency have you used, because it also can allow you to use any currency you want. But inflation can be calculated as we do economics. I think other maybe 2 questions. Deputy Executive Secretary, they said if we have a sample where this model has been used, then give them a chance to.
This model allows you to enter your actual cost, which means that if you're in Kenya, you will enter the salaries that you pay for people in Kenya. For that reason, it will already reflect your actual cost. If you are in Juba, you will enter the actual amount you pay for salaries for the people at the University of Juba. And for that reason, it will take your cost. So it takes the living standards. Number 2, you asked whether we have an average something. That's a good question, because this model is not yet applied as extensively as we want. What we are now doing is to disseminate it first. I think, as I mentioned, we'll also have another regional meeting where we get all the ideas that we have harvested and share with them, and then say, now let's apply the model. And I think when that starts coming, we'll start seeing what are the statistics showing. In this particular one, we used the universities that we got data from. And when they did the analysis, that's how they apportioned. If you look at the apportionment, you can see this apportioned to this area. So they were using the practice in the universities. And if you look at it also, they are also giving the minimum, the medium, and the maximum. So it means there was a range. And I think when you do your calculations, then you can see, do you want to be on that bottom tier, middle tier, or upper tier, as you decide how much you want to cost. So that is there for the time being, but I think the data will become a little bit more revealing when the model is used by more universities, by both public and private universities. So they have been taken care of in the model, but there is an element that is very difficult to take care of. I think that has to be determined maybe as you do the model and as you know what is the practice. Because in some countries, the government subsidizes a lot, but it's still a cost, only that the government pays it. So we cannot say that you're not incurring that particular cost. And it's good that you know what that costs. I think that will bring some debate in the course of the time when we are implementing it, and when we are insisting that students pay exactly the same fee, because that argument has come in some partner states. They say, wait a minute, the reason why we charge our students so little is because we subsidize them very heavily. And I think that is something that we push to the Council of Ministers and say, that is the practice. Now you have to decide who meets the cost of that student who comes from Kenya to study at the University of Juba, where the Sudanese government, the South Sudanese government, is subsidizing the South Sudanese to a certain amount of money. What happens? But at least we'll have established the cost ourselves with the model, and then after that we can deal with the other political, I believe. And then we will come to you and the parliamentarians here to say, please help us here, make a decision on this, and see whether in the kitty, the region, or whether we say, look, you are East African, you are paying tax in the East African community, that's the same thing, you subsidize them too. I don't know. But I think those are difficult to that. I find it very difficult to decide.
This is not going to help me. Everybody has his own conditions. They are going to say that, it depends on life. Do you know that we don't have money? Do you know that we have financial crisis? They are going to say that. It would have been good if we knew that, the minimum, the region, that, fees in dollars. Because I can use the same money to spend in Australia or spend, in dollars. And of course, we are going to put in also purchasing power currency if we want. So I'm disappointed because now it just leaves us, on with no devices really. It would be good to know in the region, what is the recommended. In fact, it would be good if you know that what translated for me is actually the best way to convince, is like the World Bank does. In terms of saying, 80% or 7% is in administration, and this really doesn't help a lot. As an administrator of University of Cuba, of a university, generally, I'm not being helped by this model because I'm left still to my own. I can go and collect that. And what I can draw from here is that the cost structure is similar. That's what is similar. I can do my own and see really how much money. If I'm not spending on ICT, it will be clear. If I'm not spending, am I spending much on medical students or engineering students or social science? And we know that there's less in social science, you spend less because you don't have heavy laboratory. Yesterday we saw the machinery, very expensive machinery to train engineering, and it was a donation. We could not buy that machinery in mechanical workshop. So anyway, this is just to enrich our conversation. No, I don't expect answers, clear answers.
The only member state that education is very cheap in the region in terms of school fees, whether it is private, whether it is public university. And it is true that if the cost cannot be met by the government, someone else has to meet it. Could be parents, students themselves. And this has been an issue. I don't know whether you people are saying that let us harmonize our fee structure. It will be very difficult when the contradictions that we find in our communities. You find parents that are sending their children to East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, and they will be ready actually to pay $1,000 per semester in a school, but they will not be ready to pay it in Cuba.
Why?
That is the bigger problem that we actually don't believe. It is an issue. And recently, some few years ago, when inflation actually occurred in our country, when our pound was devalued, Cuba University was the first actually to come up with the school fee, and it created a lot of row in the country. Until the head of the state cancelled the increase. And then we said, okay, now we wish, and we asked the Minister of Finance, now you have cancelled that one, you need to come in. You fill the gap. And they could not in fact, until we went back, people went back to Professor Akeki and said, you go ahead. And he went. In order for university to operate, and if the government cannot pay, and the parent cannot pay, then the university will not work. There will be no education. Somebody somewhere must fill the gap. And we are actually, to be very, very honest, as a member of parliament, our government is not putting much on education. And there is a really big gap that has been created by war. And the government should come heavily actually to spend on education in this area. And this has been our bigger problem. Even up to now, where you have a deficit of 58.5 billion in higher education, and you have only 23 billion budgeted. Now what do you expect to come out from it? When you have 58, which is supposed to be actual budget, and you have the deficit of 23, this is the issue. I hope we will harmonize our fees structure for all our member states.
When we are debating on the budget, and if we look at the budget, we are talking about the enrollment and the increase in salaries. So our level to the higher education and universities. It creates a problem that we cannot put our shoes compared to Uganda and Kenya. On our salary itself, if you compare an MP in Nairobi and Uganda with the MPs of South Sudan, we are not even meeting a quarter. So that one was referred back that, we have a problem of the war. Let us stabilize the economy and we'll move on. Last week we said no, we are not going to pass the budget if the civil servants are not increasing their salary. And yet it's still another debate. Because at least we need to move somewhere from the previous 1,000 or 2,000 that the civil servants are getting. We cannot compare. It depends on the situation, as you have put it. It depends on the situation. If you are in Rumbek, you assess whether one head of cattle can make you one semester. If you are in Juba, you see Akudura and what can generate money so that you manage to pay the school fees. Yes, the system, some of the problem here that we have realized, we created it ourselves. The students themselves, they make delay in the universities, like the University of Juba. At time when it comes almost to the time of exams, they create problem. They strike, want to fight. So we need even to think of this. Then the people say now, instead of my kid graduated in 5 years, in 4 years, what is the reason of them closing down the school and the years goes on to 7 years? These are one of the issues. I think we need to work hard in this country to do more awareness to our students, to our children in the schools.
This model is at a testing stage. In other words, we have collected data from a few universities in order to develop the tool. That tool, when it's collected data, then we can compare origins with origins. So what I would like to encourage the Vice Chancellors who are here, after you have understood the model, use it in the university, collect the data. And then once we have had enough universities use the model and share that data, we will be able to answer your question. We will tell you the highest charging university is charging this amount of money. The lowest charging is charging this amount of money. This percentage of universities are charging this amount of money. But we don't have that data right now. And I think this tool will help us to collect that data. So hopefully, we will help you to answer the questions that you asked, which we can't answer you now, you are right. But if we can do that, then we can answer your question. In other words, we can help each other by sharing the data that we have. That's one of the difficulties that we have in the region. And when that happens, then we can see the practice. And I think that can also help us push the conversation on the table in Parliament and other places with data. And say, this is the practice. So let's see how we can help our citizens to study in the region with the data that we have available. At that particular time, we can be able to say the cost of living in Kenya is high, the cost of living in Dar es Salaam is whatever. Then we can look at what is the practice of other places. But at least at that time, we will have the data. Our biggest problem is data availability. And I think this tool will help us to collect the data.
I just want to give an experience in Uganda. Professor Kasozi, who was the former executive director of National Council, used a model to analyze the fees payments in Uganda. And his conclusion was extremely fundamental in influencing decisions in the country. It was clear that actually universities in Uganda were charging fees far below the minimum cost of running programs. That means that quality is being affected because of also the cost that we attach to this. And as the deputy executive said, that some other body has to incur the cost, or some other body have to subsidize the cost of running our institutions. And in Uganda, this same information, these scientifically computed results we are used to influence Parliament to take decision to increase the payment for staff in the public universities. Now a professor in public universities in Uganda is earning much more now because of evidence. Because of evidence. There is evidence that what we are charging our school as school fees is so low to actually meet the cost of maintaining a professor in the university. And government need to come in to support the institutions, the public institutions, to review the salary structure to meet the cost of living, also for the professors and other costs of living. It also influences government's decision to allocate additional funding for research to public universities. At least now, Makerere University is very happy because government allocates much more money to research. But before that evidence was brought out, it was not possible for the government to take such fundamental decision. So, this kind of model should help us to dialogue a little bit more, to question our current status, so that we can be able to make decisions that are based on scientific basis.
3 scenarios, which when you put, for example, starting on the data you have today, when you put the data you have, you are able to get here minimum total contribution. You are able to get in the model medium total contribution, and you are able also to get maximum total contribution. We would have brought some minimum from other universities, but because we don't want to influence universities to charge this much, we leave this to the universities to make their own decisions. But it is already provided in the model. The minimum, the middle, and what? The maximum. Then from there we can be able to improve the system. And our Deputy Executive Secretary said, when we get all the information from different universities, then you can put together the region, maybe can say in the region. It can be also comparative to country by country, because the cost of living is not the same. If US, they say the minimum of USA students is 10,000. Can you do the same here in Juba? Not possible. So it depends still on the cost of living to determine that minimum, medium, and maximum.
The public universities, unlike the private, we are pay our salary. It may be delayed, but it will be paid. Yeah. So we get the salary. It's delayed, but it can be paid. Now, when we adjust, what is happening with us here is that the currency, like the Honorable Undersecretary is saying, has been constantly depreciating up and down, which is affecting what you can do with the money that you collect. You know, whatever you do, the operation goes up. You know, because the prices of everything, fuel, water, everything goes up based on when the currency loses value. So what we did the first time we did that, we look at we accepted the salary that comes. With, you know, little or small, it was just that one. And then we look at operation, including part-timers, because we actually, we don't have enough teachers, so yeah. Not only that, we also pay extra hours. If you are teaching above your level, we spend a lot of money actually on our own staff. Marking, allowances, you know, examination, inflation, and so on. So that's what we did last time. So when we went to the parliament, we said, this is how much we call that to operate. And that's why we are asking the student to pay for the operation. And the government, of course, is paying for the salaries, operation, and a bit of maintenance. So that's what we did. Now, the other thing we said, okay, we had a fight. First time it was, you know, rejected. Second time we fought, and then we reached a compromise, which means actually we didn't get the projection that we wanted. We got half of that. And then we start, because it was a big jump. Even half of that was a big jump from what was being paid initially. So that's how we did. The other thing I want to bring to your attention is whether you are aware about the microeconomic model that was for Kenya, that was developed by one of the vice chancellors of Nairobi University. And one time it was honored actually by the forum in 2018 for microeconomic model for, which means the P structures and so on. One thing that I know about Kenya, and you correct me, is that how the students are actually, their fees is fixed by the government, okay, half of them. And you can admit the other 50%, which means, you double that number. Half of them are privately funded. And from Kenyatta University, which we visited with colleagues, they said that they generally admitted students pay 8 times, so those are things in air. I don't know whether your committee has that. And it looks like there's no clear signs, for that. It's just like you try to manage around. So, but this is good. We can, we can give it a go and then move forward. Thank you very much.